believe that. Cannot believe that. We lost 12, 13 seconds there, at least. And I could have saved time there, realistically.
All right, in order for me to do this podcast here, I have to get into the mindset of a streamer, so... Quick to keep your healthy juice options up here.
Good flavour as well, I like it.
How much will this monster can boost my heart rate?
Probably to dangerous levels if you keep going. But yeah, I don't know. Apparently I read somewhere that you can have 2 cans of Monster and it's the equivalent of having 1 cup of black coffee. So that's how I justify it to myself.
What's your highest heart rate you've ever seen on stream? I've seen 157 on your world record, Streets of Rage 2.
I think in that same one, actually, it got even higher after the thing finished. So the highest it got to was 164 or 65, I think it was. And it was just after I got the world records. I'm not sure if maybe there was a delay in the heart rate monitor reading it or something. But yeah, I got it, and it just kept going up and up and up even after I'd gotten it. And yeah, just as the credits started, I think it started to drop afterwards. Hey. Papa! We fucking did it! Oh my god! Mate! Did it! Alright, sound alert's back on. I can't believe it! Oh my god! No! I can't believe it! Oh my... What the fuck?
Got it! Got it!
Mate, the runs have been so bad today as well, and you just pulled that. That was... I'm never going to beat that. That is as good as it's ever going to get for me. Right, let me just show you the comparisons, because at the moment it's sort of switching between my sub splits. I'll just get it so you can only see the world record. That's compared to the world record. We are half a second, 0.6 seconds out of the world record. That we've done it. But
you still look quite young, because I suppose you can afford to have your heart rate that high.
Yeah, well, my body can take it. I'll do it.
So you're a bit of an enigma to me. You're a professional in the oil and gas industry, and yet it almost seems to me you're full-time on Twitch playing Streets of Rage 2, which is a 20-year-old game.
Yeah, it's just a real passion for the game, really. And yeah, I've got a bit of an addictive personality at the best of times, and I think it's a bit of a combination of something that I enjoy playing just by itself anyway, and then when you add in the fact that there's people willing to watch and chat with me whilst I'm playing the game, it's just something I really enjoy, and I'll just keep binging it, I guess, until I eventually do everything I need to do.
It's so hard to get attention on Twitch. When I go on Twitch, I am happy if I get like 1 viewer for 10% of the stream. And I've got friends that are on there like 15 to 20 hours a week, but they're only getting like 2 or 3 viewers. So what is the secret to have like up to 70 viewers at once?
Luck is a massive part of it. So yeah, you could do everything right by the book, and you can speak to all the top streamers in the world and do everything they say word for word, and still not be able to make it, because luck is going to play a big part of it. But I think the big things for me, where I notice big changes in viewership increase, is firstly just getting good quality equipment. So I didn't actually, when I first started playing the game on stream, I did it with no cam and no microphone either, which is fine. You can get viewers by that. But really, I noticed my first big jump when I brought in a decent quality camera and decent microphone as well. Because it's easier for people to watch then, isn't it? If you've got someone whose stream is crackling every 2 seconds, no one's going to tune in for very long. At least then, if you've got someone you can actually relate with and chat to, and you know who you're talking to, I think that sort of helps people stay longer. And then being good at the game helps as well. It's, again, not crucial, that one, but it helps like bring initial attention, right? Because if you're just some guy who's only just started streaming and all of a sudden you're breaking world records off the bat, which was what I did, mind, But if you were to do that, people are going to pay attention, because if you're uploading stuff to YouTube and speedrun.com and people are seeing this new name at the top, people are going to be interested. And then also, I think another massive thing is consistency. And I notice it even now. If I have, I try and stream normally around lunchtime most days for about 4 hours. I try and get in. And I think the consistency really helps. But I do notice if I have 1 or 2 days off, if I'm ill or going somewhere, or if I've been on holiday, even that first day back, even if it's only 2 or 3 days off, that first day back, there's always a dip in viewership until I've got that consistent schedule again. I think the same goes for as well. Even if you stream every day at different times, it's not really going to be massively beneficial. So yeah, consistency, I think, is one of the big underrated ones that I don't think gets spoken about enough either.
The reason that I like your streams is that I find that when I talk about where I am, where I'm in Ukraine and stuff like that, I feel like you're genuinely concerned. Whereas some streamers, you write something, they'll just be like, "Yeah, sup," or "What about that?" But they don't really feel like they actually care about your viewers. Yeah. When you're there, I almost feel a sort of a connection, even though it's like 70 people. So, I can't really say exactly. I mean, I have like 20 or 30 people that I follow, but there's always like a choice between who else I follow, So, and that is, you're also quite funny, and your reactions are quite funny as well. And just like, it's quite a funny stream to watch. And the reason that I'll watch streaming versus watching like a movie or anything like that is that sometimes when I'm working, I find it quite lonely to be work remotely. And watching a lot of these retro game streams, it sort of reminds me of my childhood again. Yeah. And it's like when the person restarts the level again, it's almost like you're sitting there with them playing it, but you're also working on the side. So I don't take Twitch that seriously. I just like, it's sort of when you're working remotely, it passes the time a bit.
Yeah. I think for me as well, when I've virtually stopped watching anything other than the only TV that I watch nowadays is live sport. But yeah, other than that, like the only things I watch are either YouTube or Twitch. And I think part of it, firstly, I think for YouTube specifically, I think it's the fact that because there's so much stuff on YouTube, so much content on YouTube of all different types, is that you can really find like a really specific niche of stuff you enjoy watching. And then you can just binge it because there's just so many people who've got similar types of things, and you find other people through that. With Twitch, I enjoy it is because you've got that interactivity with the streamer. So, I mean, that's not like a thing on TV at all, is that you can chat with somebody, even if they've got like a good few hundred viewers at a time as well. You can often chat with these people and sort of be part of it yourself, which I think is appealing for people.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that I don't even game. Like the last time I actually sat down and played a game was about 2 months ago. And never mind the actual games that people are streaming, like Super Metroid, I've not played that since 25 years ago. I've not played Street Series 2 probably 25 years ago. But, it's just something that's very easily accessible and it's, it's quite interesting. But also it's so optimized because, like, we all know what happens in these games. We all know what Super Metroid is. We all know the endings of Super Street Series 2 and stuff like that, people that, watch the streams. But it's just this challenge of getting the actual closer and closer and closer to these world records that makes it kind of addictive to watch, and can't imagine what it's like gaming.
Yeah, it's because everyone's sort of in on the journey with you as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially if you were one of the people who has been watching for a while. And I guess this is why consistency is quite important as well. Is that if a lot of people who watch my stream at least are watching it at work, they just have it on in the background at work.
Yeah.
So obviously Monday to Friday, you've got the same people tuning in almost every single day. It's a routine for them, and if that's what they do at work and they're able to watch it in the background at work, it'll be a habit that they enjoy getting into. And I think, it gets to the stage where I'm assuming as a viewer, you sort of don't want to miss any streams then in case that's the day that the world record gets broken and you've wasted all that time watching all this stream up until then. But I think that does go hand in hand with the consistency, is that you sort of feel like you're in the journey as well. You're doing it yourself.
I guess there's pros and cons. Oh, there we go with some monster. Your heart rate.
First one of the day.
Where's the heart rate going up here? I'm actually at my mate's house, and this is a monster that I left here about a month ago, and he doesn't drink it anyway. So I'm like, is that my monster can? He goes, yeah. I'm just drinking. I'm in his bedroom right here. So
yeah, addictive stuff.
Yeah. So can you just give us an idea of how optimized Streets of Rage 2 is right now in that hard mode?
Yeah, so obviously it depends on what difficulty you're doing, and all the difficulties are currently at different levels of optimization. So the one I'm doing at the moment is the hardest difficulty, which is strangely the second hardest difficulty of all of them. And yeah, there's a guy, I think a Ukrainian guy, who is also streaming passively as well. He doesn't stream as often as me, but I think he does a lot of his practice and stuff offline, so he's very good at the game. So yeah, it wasn't so long ago that he beat the record that I was trying to get. So there's sort of that competition there anyway. But yeah, it's really optimized. The difficulty with this game specifically is that there's a lot of randomness. So they call it RNG, which I believe stands for random number generator, which is basically a system that programs things like enemy movement based on random things. So such as like if I press the right button, that will make an enemy do something else. It's not too dissimilar. It's like a butterfly effect type thing. So if I press the right button, that will make an enemy, for example, walk up. And if I press the left button, that will make them walk down. Or it'll change their decision-making process, basically, based on my inputs. So that's one of the things that makes the game really difficult, is that you can follow a route to the letter. You can do the exact correct things at the exact right time. But there's no guarantee that you're going to get a good time, because you're going to have the enemies doing whatever they want to do, you know. So, yeah, there's a lot of randomness based in it, which makes things very difficult. In terms of optimization, the time can definitely be beaten. Currently, the run is the speed run that I do at the moment is just under 35 minutes long. So obviously, because you've got so much randomness, that's 35 minutes of complete randomness at some points there. And not all of it's random, mind, but a good chunk of it is. So yeah, I mean, theoretically, you could probably take that time down by another minute from the current world record, I'd say, realistically. But who knows? There might be some new strategies that somebody comes up with. But yeah, the hardest difficulty, the one that I'm doing at the moment, is not the most optimized run on the game. There's the one that I completed, when was it? A few months ago. I think beginning of December. Is that right? Yeah, that sounds right, I think. Beginning of December, I got the normal difficulty speedrun world records, and that is the most optimized one. It's almost, you've got to play the whole thing perfectly. You could probably save another 20 or 30 seconds if everything went exactly according to plan, but it never will.
You bet that by, 50 milliseconds, I think?
Oh, yeah, I've completely forgotten about that as well. So, yeah, the guy who held the world record previously is a guy called Anthopants, who's a bit of a legend for this game. And he's actually who got me into streaming in the first place. It was through watching his videos, which was quite poetic, I thought. And yeah, so he's been playing the game his whole life. He's just turned 40 not so long ago. And he's been playing the game since it came out. So he's been playing it for 30 years non-stop. And I think he's generally considered to be the best player of the game ever, at least with this character. And yeah, he'd got... Was it him officially? Yeah, I think I started speedrunning the normal difficulty. This is the category that we're talking about, normal difficulty. I started speedrunning it, and I think he wasn't the world record holder before. I think he was second behind an Australian guy called A1 Major, another very good player of the game. So I started practicing to try and beat A1 Major's world records, and I think I beat it by not a massive amount, by 10, 15 seconds or so. And then it's a good story, this, actually, because Anthopants hadn't streamed for a while, and he sort of disappeared for a short while. I think he's got quite a busy personal life. And yeah, after seeing that, I think it sort of triggered him to come back and play the game himself and try and get back into it and try and grab a world record. And the normal difficulty speedrun is particularly coveted because it's on the front page of the speedrun.com leaderboards. So if you go to speedrun.com, look up Streets of Rage 2, which is the game, the first page is on normal difficulty with this Max character that I play. So that's sort of like the headline run, I guess.
Well done.
And so I'd beaten it by not much, and then Anthopants came back, and you could see quite clearly that it was a matter of time before he was going to beat it, because he was getting so close every single run to breaking it, whereas I just pulled off like one really, really good, what felt like one of a kind run. And eventually he did beat it by, I think, a couple of seconds, and then like a day later he beat it by 20 seconds, and then a day later again he beat it by another 30 or 40 seconds. So I was like, oh god. So after that, I decided to say, well, screw it, we'll go for it. And I just spent 6 months or so just binging this one difficulty. And eventually I did it. And obviously I was celebrating and stuff. And it showed on my screen that I'd beaten it by 0.6 seconds, which is, or it might have been like even less than that, 0.5 or something, which obviously was incredible. But obviously these things as well, you can't just upload them and say, oh, I've got the world record. They have to be like properly reviewed to make sure people aren't cheating and stuff, which is fine. So I spoke to the head reviewer about it and said, because the timer on the display was 23 minutes, 24 seconds, and we both got the exact same time, but he got 23, 24 and like 0.8 milliseconds, and I got 0.2. So I said to him, the head guy who runs the leaderboard, I said, it might be better if you display it on the website as milliseconds, so people coming in see how close it is, and it's a good little thing to have for advertising the game. So he did it, and he measured frame by frame each individual run, or each of our runs, and counted it to the absolute millisecond. And it turns out that I did win, but it wasn't by 0.6 seconds, it was by 0.06 seconds. So it was effectively six milliseconds, or 600ths of a second. And yeah, it was the world record then in the end, and yeah, it was insanely close. But I guess that just goes to show how tightly optimized the game is, that I'd been binging it for that long, as had he. And all it came down to is literally something that you really can't account for skill, really. It's luck. Something
Is this recorded on original hardware?
So his is, Anthopants' run is, mine isn't, which is actually probably unfortunate for him, really, because the original hardware runs the game ever so slightly slower than using an emulator on PC, which is what I use. I'm not really doing it to get a head up or a hand up or anything. It's just convenience for me. I do have the console next to me, but I've got to set it all up, and it makes a mess, and there's wires everywhere, and you've got to buy equipment to get it working, and it's just way more convenient to use it on PC for me. So yeah, he was actually using the slower system. So technically, he's probably got a quicker run than me.
You don't mention that in your streams, don't you?
I know. I have to stay silent.
Yeah, you should do it now. Now every time you start a stream will be 5 seconds. Well, I actually play on a faster system, so you know.
Yeah.
So how do they count frames on original hardware? Because it seems like there's no interface for that or API for that. That is like, I mean, just what do they do to count it? You know, it's just a slurry pipe RGB connection to the.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually way easier than that. They just took the video, and then you can see, like, you can have a start point. So maybe it's easier to describe if I had a video, really. But the way that the level starts, there's a thing that says stage 1 start, and it sort of flies in from the middle, and you can set like that as a start point. So the second everything stays still, where it says stage 1 start, you can start both runs at the exact same point and literally just watch the YouTube video, and the second that the last hit is on the final boss, then you can use that as the last point and then just count the frames on the video, as opposed to counting something directly from the game.
Oh, right, I got you. So what is a frame?
So, good question. A frame is basically it's not too dissimilar to in a movie. So video, as in movie video, is essentially just millions and millions of pictures just taken at really tiny intervals. So yeah, if you're watching like a 1 hour film, that's actually essentially like, God knows how many, a million or so individual pictures just taken at tiny intervals to make it look like people are moving. A bit like a flip book as well. If you do the flip book, you're not actually watching video there, you're just watching a number of different, essentially, frames just moving quickly enough that it looks like it's connected in some way. So yeah, a frame is literally basically one shot of the game.
And how many frames per second?
Say that again, sorry.
How many FPS?
So again, there's a bit of difference on the specificities of it. 60 is the easy way of answering that. But I think if you use a console, it's at something like 59.94. So it's as good as, no one notices, but it is actually slower to use a physical console as opposed to your computer. And then there's also variants based on the region of the game you're in. So you have this with games even now where you have like the PAL and NTSC version. I don't know what either of them stand for, but basically the PAL is the European version. And based on the way that European TVs worked back in the 90s and stuff, that actually runs at 50 frames per second. So it's a noticeable slowdown compared to the NTSC, which is how they used it in America. So yeah, if you bought Streets of Rage 2, both in the US and also the UK, back in the 90s when it first came out, the UK version would run slower than the US version, just of the way that the frames per second works.
Streaming retro games, speedrunning, it seems like it's a very high skill, high effort endeavor, but your audience, I find, it just seems very limited because it's very niche in terms of people that are interested in speedrunnings, and it's very niche for a particular game. So, like, can you imagine? You ever think to yourself, why didn't I just learn to play a really new modern game very well? Like, I don't know, those Call of Duty things. You might get a bigger audience, more rumination.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that is the thing. The problem is oversaturation at that point. So another good example would be something like Fortnite. I've never really played it before, but yeah, you see, it's quite interesting actually. If you were to look on the on Twitch, if you were to look on under the Fortnite category, scroll all the way to the bottom, which might take you a while because there's so many streamers doing it. You will see so many people at the bottom there, just kids and everything, and they don't really care. They're just doing it for fun, just streaming the game. So many people have like 0 to 3 viewers at any one point.
Makes sense, yeah.
Because there's hundreds and hundreds of Fortnite streamers because it's such a massive game. So the difficulty is trying to find a niche that is interesting, that people want to watch, and also combining that with all the other things like being entertaining enough to be worth watching, and chatting with the stream and everything. So yeah, also the other thing as well, if you find something that's too niche, no one's going to be interested in it. So way back when I first started streaming, I temporarily, almost as a test really, played some other game that really wasn't popular at all. And that whole week up until that point, I was averaging like 7 or 8 viewers, played that game, and I got like 1 the entire stream. So yeah, you've got to find that sort of sweet point between too niche and too well-known. And I think especially retro games are specifically good for that because it's that nostalgia hit. So many people have played the game, like, oh, this is a great game. I remember this when I was a kid. And then they'll stay and watch from there. And then I guess it's up to me to try and keep them coming back and keep them roped in.
Yeah, I think with this sounds crude, but it's almost like a pyramid scheme or Ponzi scheme in the sense that you need to get in there first to get this viewership. And the ones that have the viewers are the ones that grow. But a lot of people, they never get beyond that 1 or 2, 3, 4 in critical mass to gain that following. So it's a lot of high effort. And I think for some people it's positive. Like they get a lot of community out of it. But for those that are basically try-harding for almost no viewers, you almost just watch them and they look depressed, So it's like, you shouldn't be gaming and streaming, and it's just.
Yeah, I think you nailed it perfectly there. Really, I think some people do it for that community and being able to chat to someone, which absolutely fine. But then I think as well, people get too focused on the numbers for it as well. And again, this is something you see all the time, even with like big streamers. Is that, let's say, we'll just say Fortnite, for example. There's a streamer who gets really big playing Fortnite. They eventually work their way up to getting like thousands of viewers per stream, which is fantastic. And then one day they're like, you know what, I'm just sick of Fortnite, I'll play FIFA. And then they play FIFA, and then they realize very quickly that a lot of the people there, whilst they were entertained by the streamer, they were mainly there to watch Fortnite. And then if you're someone who is getting thousands of viewers every stream, not speaking from experience at all, if you're someone who's getting thousands of viewers every stream and then you switch to a different game and all of a sudden you're now down to 50 to 100 viewers, that's going to take a confidence hit. And I'm not surprised that people get depressed or upset about it because, you almost connect it with your worth, which is not the best thing to do. But yeah, you see a lot of people do that, I think.
Yeah. I don't care what game you play. You play all that. I think I would still watch your stream.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
There's another interesting dynamic with games. I think that as the world records get more optimized, the frustration level and the pain in streamers increases as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this a lot in Super Metroid, which is probably the game that I watch the most, just because it's so interesting the way the scenes work. I don't know if you remember that game, but there's like all these rooms and the physics are really good in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the ways to get to the world record stages, it's like one frame perfection jumps in this stuff, and you have to chain them all together. And you see people, there's basically attacks in Super Metroid. Every run you have to do this boring first ship escape. It's 3 or 4 minutes. They always have to do that every run. And then there's like 15 minutes into the game, there's one jump where it's like one frame. They have to nail it perfectly. And if they fail it, they just reset the console. So it's like bad.
Yeah, I completely empathise with that as well. That's definitely something I've noticed for me, is that when I first started doing it, I still enjoy it now, let me preface this, but when I first started doing it, like every stream was a laugh because I was getting personal best times all the time and I was improving all the time. Now I'm getting to the top times and I'm playing against the best players in the world and trying to sometimes beat times by a matter of less than 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It becomes a lot more sweaty, for lack of a better term, a lot more grindy, and I've got to concentrate more to try and get it. So yeah, I think again, the trick for that is trying to find the balance between still enjoying the game whilst also still playing well and just not taking it too seriously, which it is difficult. But yeah, it's definitely something I've noticed, is that the better I've got with the game and the more optimized the games are, the more, not upset I've become, but the more stressy I can get on stream. Like I can start getting a bit angry on stream, and I try not to, but sometimes it's difficult.
I think it's hilarious, man.
That's the goal. As long as people are finding it funny, that's the important thing. I don't mind too much.
I've seen a few
about
streams where people are basically start spamming the coinage and then you're basically like, shut up with the coinage, and you'll turn them off, and then you'll be like swearing at the characters on screen like they're taking the mickey, like they're actually real people, and they're like,
yeah, exactly,
Donovan and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the trick for it, if you're going to have to let out rage, which I think is inevitable at some point, is just make sure it's not directed at the people who are watching the stream, and that it's directed at either yourself or the game being crap or whatever like that. I think that's the important thing, because I've spoken to people before about it on my own stream where they've said things like, "Oh yeah, there was this streamer I watched, and he had some like big rage at somebody in the chat because they were like distracting him or something, and it was actually really off-putting." And it makes complete sense. Like, no one wants to watch a guy who's firstly constantly angry, and secondly constantly angry at the people who are watching him and paying for him to play the game, really. So, yeah, I think as long as you sort of keep it away from directing it at chat, I think that's fine.
So what would you like to see in esports and in speedrunning in the future, just in general?
It's a good question. I think esports generally has been growing for a while now. I mean, you see, again, with some of these games like Fortnite, I remember even a couple of years ago reading a story about a kid, I think he was like 13 or 14 or something, and he won $10 million on a Fortnite tournament, which is just incredible. So yeah, I think probably good for esports generally, stuff like that, just bringing attention to it and stuff like that. Yeah, I think, games that like ones that I play, like retro games, are never going to be anywhere near that level. It's nothing ever going to be on that podium, I guess. But I think that there's events, things like GDQ, Games Done Quick, which is a thing that's held, I think, a couple of times a year. And it's like a charity event where basically they get a bunch of speedrunners of all different games, not necessarily retro games, modern games, of all different varieties, like sports games, action games, literally anything you can think of. And yeah, over the course of a week, they have these time slots, and people who stream or play YouTube and speedrun these games, they do like a live run. and it's all for charity, and it makes a load of money every year. And I think events like that are probably more realistic, especially for speedrunning specifically. But yeah, they do a really good job. I think they raise millions every time they do it, so it's like a big thing now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think more events like that would be good, because as well, it's a GDQ is an event based in America, which is fine, but there's a lot of people who aren't in America playing these games as well. And over COVID, they had a solution for that where a lot of people would do runs streamed basically online. But I think they've sort of said they're going to revert back to in-person events from the future. I can see both sides of it. Like, you want to get an audience there as well behind them, and it's good for that atmosphere. But also, yeah, it does exclude quite a significant proportion of the speedrunners across the world as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the attraction of in-person events for, like, in my local town here in Scotland, East Kilbride, 100,000 people. If there was like tickets for, I don't know, a tenner, and it's you and the other top 10 Streets Rage 2 players, and they're all going to sit you down on 10 screens and in a sort of lounge or stadium, I don't know, stadium's probably place, that would be fun. But the thing is, like, how are they? Who's going to pay for all the flight tickets from all across the world to come and do that? You know,
Exactly, yeah.
So in a sense, it would be good, but you can't have that. Well, you have basically a remote system to make it in person. It is really, really, really difficult.
Yeah, and I think as well, having an audience on Twitch and then having an audience who would be willing to pay £10 to come and go to one of these live events are two different things as well. I think you'll have a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I'd love to do that," but then when it comes down to it, you know, it's going to be difficult for people unless they live in that local area. So if you did it in London, I'm sure you get a few people turn up from London, but you know, no one's going to be flying in from anywhere else in the world just to see this one thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went to Gfinity in Fulham, Broadway, and they've got a Gfinity is like a esports thing, and I can't remember how I got a free ticket for it, but I got a free ticket for it anyway. But I sat there. It was 2 games I wasn't interested in. No, it was a whole night of that football with you had these cars and you basically behave like football. You fly around. League. Yeah, I had just no interest in the game, so I was actually really bored there, even though the presentation and everything was so great.
Yeah,
and I didn't know any of the players and teams, and the teams are really into it. They were all like high five and stuff like that, but it just was a niche game, and you know, maybe not niche, but for me, it's like I had zero interest in that game. You know.
Yeah. That's what I think. One of the appeals of having this GDQ event is that there usually is something for everyone. Is that, I mean, I look, funny enough, this last year, in fact, when did they do it? I think they've done it this last week or something. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, possibly. And I looked through the list and there wasn't a single game that interested me just about. But that's the thing. Like, if you're showing up to these events in person, you're usually going to be a fan of more than just one game. Because obviously you've got to pay the entry ticket and stuff. And if you've got like friends who are running in the event, and if there's like 7 or 8 games one day where you're interested in watching all of them or you've played all of them before, yeah, you're going to be interested in that. And I think that's why things like GDQ work, is that it's got all that massive variety of almost something for everybody, really. There's just such a huge scope of games that they get through.
Mm-hmm. I still think that gaming streaming will get harder as time goes on because... Well, actually, no, because eventually people will die that have played older games. Like, so you imagine in 30 years' time, no one's going to care about Mega Drive games.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, but there's the sort of amount of games that are in active use around the world is still growing, you know. So, then again, more people have access to the internet as time goes on. So,
yeah, but I guess it makes it more saturated as well, doesn't it? That eventually, maybe instead of people liking games specifically like Streets of Rage or Golden Axe or other games like that with Zelda, it would be more like, oh, I'm just a fan of retro games generally, in which case you are 10 times in the amount of people who stream retro games, and yeah, it's going to be a huge oversaturation. So yeah, you're right, it will become harder, I think.
Regarding optimization of speedruns, it definitely seems that the retro games have an advantage because when the coders made those games, there wasn't any patches. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing your games out like Streets of Rage 4 where there's patches, and every time there's a new patch that comes out, they reset all the runs. So it just seems a very hard thing to chase.
Yeah, it's very frustrating from that point of view. I think that's one of the things that puts me off playing games like Streets of Rage 4 as much, is the thing that, well, firstly, I'm just not as good at the game initially. That's the big problem. But secondly, things like it can change at any point, and there's not really many ways to exploit the game. and there's not really many ways to exploit Streets of Rage 2 either, but I'm talking about more retro games generally. I think part of the appeal for a lot of speedrunners that I watch for games that I never really played before is the fact that they've got these crazy glitches that just break the entire game. Obviously, the developers had no intention of that being in there, but like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a great example. So this is a game I used to love as a kid. I loved it.
Same here.
And yeah, it's a great game. And it's a really entertaining speedrun to watch because instead of just playing through the game, there's so many levels in it where, and there's different categories, so you don't have to do this, but there's so many levels where like you'll just put a jump in the exact right place and you'll somehow fall into a wall, then all of a sudden you like zip over to the end of the level and it like completely destroys the game. And just seeing like one of my childhood favorite games just getting completely torn open like that, I love it. It's great.
Did you ever put it into debug mode?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I couldn't quite understand how to work it as a kid because I was really young at the time. But I did have my old SEGA cheat book, and I was doing the codes from that.
I managed to get the rings into like the higher orders of numbers. So basically, as you get as you kill enemies in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the points sort of goes up exponentially. So like 10, 50, like 100, 100,000. But what I would do in debug mode is that you can spawn enemies, right? So I would jump, right, and pause it, and then I'd move the cursor over to where they jumped, and I had a turbo button, right, and I basically spawning enemies turbo while I jumping, and the numbers would go beyond like I don't know, was it 1 million points, and it would go into like this sort of hexadecimal, like hexadecimal programming numbering language. It kept on going. I would just, I should have started programming back then, so. Yeah,
especially when you're a kid doing all that kind of stuff, it's great because it's like, oh, I feel like I've broken the game, or I've like hacked the game, or got into some bit they're not meant to see. It's really good fun.
When's your stream about to start? By the way, I don't want to.
I don't think I'm going to stream today. After all, I've got some important stuff to do later. I've got to go to the gym as well, and I don't think I'd do it if I started streaming.
Yeah, so I keep telling you to do deep squats on the stream.
Yeah, no, I do need to practice these now.
I don't use the gym, man. I don't have time to go to the gym. I do all my stuff pretty much at home.
Yeah,
I find that keeps me mostly in shape. And
yeah, it works. Different things work for different people, don't they? I'm quite lucky in the fact that I've got there's 2 gyms in my town. One is 2 minutes away from home. The other one's 2 minutes away from work, so it works out really conveniently for me. And it's the same chain as well, so I can just get access to both of them quite easily.
So how do you avoid becoming unhealthily overweight as a gamer?
It's not easy, but I've always been since I started uni, I've always been quite hot on my weight and stuff because as a kid I was quite chubby. I wasn't fat really, but if I'd kept going I would have been. And so when I went to uni, I remember saying to myself is that most people when they go to uni put on weight. I don't want to be one of those people. I want to do the opposite of that. I want to lose weight. I did so, and got like a personal trainer and stuff like that, which helped me sort of get that knowledge initially. And I've been going to the gym on and off since then, which was 12, 13 years ago now, 10 years ago maybe. So yeah, the thing that drives me on is just trying to stay fit and not get like I was as a kid. Because I didn't like being chubby.
Yeah,
but it is difficult to juggle the schedule for sure.
You don't fit the stereotypical gamer. I know that if I went back to gaming, it's very bad for me because I'm very focused. So for me, like gaming is like if I was an alcoholic and I start drinking again, I can't really control it. So I basically fulfill this urge by watching some streams now and again, but I don't actually sit and play the games because I can literally go for like 8 hours.
Yeah, I'm the same with that as well. I do it live on stream. Like there's so many times where I'll say, right, okay, I'll do a 4-hour stream, then I'll go to the gym afterwards, and then next thing you know, I've been streaming for 8 hours, and it's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh.
So how much money does it make you per hour streaming?
Per hour, probably not the best way to measure it. Really, it's not a lot. Nowhere near enough to live off. But yeah, it's this month's been a bit of an exception, but usually I get a thingy from Twitch for about £150 to £200 each month, which is nice. Right. Yeah, it's for a side hobby. It's great, but it really does make you think. Like actually, to make a living off streaming or Twitch, you've got to be making like you've got to be seriously good at the whole thing, and
quickie baby.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, it's great as like a little passive income. To be honest, it's not really the money that I'm doing it for, as cliche as it sounds. It's the enjoyment I get from A, playing the game, and B, chatting with people as well.
Yeah,
the money is just sort of like a nice little added bonus.
I'm sure for certain people it's quite genuinely helpful having someone coming on stream regularly, and they can chat with, and you can remember who they are,
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think as well I might even be an exception for how many viewers I get. So I'm, depending on the month, average somewhere between 50 and 70 viewers, which is great. But I think I'm quite lucky in the fact that people are very generous in firstly donating cash directly to me, and then also buying a subscription to the channel, which 50% of that goes to Twitch, 50% of it goes to me. But in return, you get like free emotes and emojis and stuff you can use in my channel and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm quite lucky because I think, having spoken with people who are at similar levels to me with viewers, I don't think they end up getting as many people subscribing or donating. So I'm quite lucky in that aspect, that people are willing to be generous, which obviously is appreciated.
Mm-hmm. I once started a hype train for some streamer. I think it was me. I came in with, I think it was either 500 or 1,000 bits. And then somebody watching it, some loaded guy, put down like one of those sort of the highest amount you can give on bits in terms of the diamonds, right? It's like it was beyond, I think it was like 10,000. And then this hype train was like over within like, it had maxed out within like 5 minutes and it was still going. And he was just, I think he made something like between 1,000 and 2,000.
Yeah, that's it's actually it's weird actually how that works. So the hype train on Twitch, I'll explain just in case no one knows, but it's basically if a bunch of people contribute to the channel in some way, whether that's a donation, I think donations via PayPal count, a subscription being bought, some bits being donated like cheer bits. And the more, like, once it hits like I can't remember the exact amount, but once it hits like a certain amount, a hype train starts. It doesn't really do much other than just says, oh, there's a hype train, get donating to keep the hype train going. And it's surprisingly effective, actually. You'd be amazed at how many people who were not planning on donating, subscribing, or anything like that do so just to keep the hype train going. And I had it with a friend of mine, really, really nice guy, quite a small streamer as well, but unbelievably nice guy. And he was one of the people, actually, he was one of my first regulars in my channel when I first started as well. And he was just streaming a game randomly, and I think someone donated, it was just something tiny, like 100 bits, which is about, I think, 10p, if that.
A pound, not a pound. I think it's a pound.
Is it? Okay, there you go. Well, 100 bits, £1. But as a result of that, and myself included, loads of people like giving gift subs and everything. I think he made a couple of £100 that day. And then there was another time as well. I wasn't actually in on the stream, but the same guy, because I think he just struggled with money as well in the past. And a few of the guys had got together. It was a few of his regulars had got together, and then just one stream just donated £1,000 to him. And obviously, you could see he was just completely shocked. And it was like I'm even now I'm sort of getting tingles thinking about it. But it's just good to see people like that get rewarded for all the effort and hard work they do with no expectation of anything in return, really.
Yeah. What do you think about that times where Mr. Beast goes in and donates something like £10,000 and stuff like that?
Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? I've seen a few of those videos, and it's always good to see those people who are just not expecting anything at all, just like kids a lot of the time as well, just all of a sudden get a massive amount of money.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, if it is someone like Mr. Beast doing it, it brings attention to their channel. Not that I've done it recently, but I presume he's putting the usernames of the people he's going into on his videos, and you can't underestimate the impact of your username being in the description of a video that's got 100 million views or whatever. So that it not only is just that massive initial donation that he'll give, but also it sets these people up to have like almost a streaming career then, because they've got 500 or so people coming in to watch from the Mr. Beast video.
Mm-hmm. So when I'm streaming, I basically teach. I'm doing software engineering on stream. Basically, it's really hard to do because when you're coding, you've got this sort of history of hours or hundreds of hours in a project. And and it's very hard to sort of work out what's going on in the code base unless you've started it from scratch. So people even could come to my channel as an interested programmer, but then they're looking at my code that's been developed over a certain amount of time, and it basically doesn't mean anything to them. So my viewership is dreadful, So what advice would you give me if I wanted to sort of grow my programming stream to some of the higher programming streams out there?
Things like programming streams, I imagine it'd be quite difficult because, you give them the perfect reason there. I think there are small things you could do. So there are these bots that you can implement into your chat. I've got one for my own thing for less important reasons, but you could do things like every 15 minutes, this bot posts in your own chat saying or describing what you're specifically working on at that moment. So I haven't got it on my stream at the moment, but
that's a good idea.
So I could have a bot post in my chat every 15 minutes saying, "Oh, I'm trying to get the world record in this game," blah blah blah. So it just sort of gives people who only just popped in a brief overview, and without having to ask the streamer about it,
right?
And without the streamer having to explain it every 2 minutes as well. So yeah, for coding, that could be a good thing. You could just have one saying, "Oh, I'm coding a XYZ, trying to get it to ABC." So that would help. And I think I did have another point. I've completely forgotten it. But I think that the bots would probably be the best thing. Consistency, actually, that was my other point. Consistency. So again, it's sort of one of these self-fulfilling prophecies, I guess, is that the more consistent you get, the more people who tuned in one time just to see what was up might tune in again the next day to see you keep doing the coding and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, if you have that happen with 3 or 4 people, you get regulars who already know what's going on. At that point, then they don't need to try and get into it then because they already understand, and then you can sort of build up from there.
I think a programming that's difficult because, if you're a good programmer, you're likely working full time. So if you're going to stream, it's going to be really hard to focus and concentrate because after I've done a full day's work, it's very hard to go and sit and concentrate and do more coding. That's why it's really hard to make a startup while you're a full-time developer.
I think that's even the same, not just for code. Well, I imagine it's probably worse for coding, to be honest. But it's even the same for gaming. I very, very, very rarely ever finish work and then go and stream afterwards because I'm too tired. And it's not even that I do that strenuous of a job. Sorry. But yeah, it's just that you've got to be social, right? And if I'm sat there on stream yawning, not really chatting to anybody, it's like the least entertaining thing in the world. No one wants to watch that. Part of the reason is that people watch is they've got that interactivity with the streamer. And if I'm just sat there, not really saying much, just a bit tired, not in a bad mood, but just not got the energy levels up, people aren't going to be wanting to watch that.
The amount of energy output you have in your streams is incredible, really. I think that's why people try it to your stream, because you're playing a very intense game that requires extreme concentration, and then you're flicking down, looking reading the chat at the same time. And
it's one of these help.
It's hard to convey how much effort it is. Because when I do a stream, I'm knackered, man. I'm really even if it's just coding, I'm talking about the code after, I'm like, sheesh. But you're doing it for 4 hours at a trot, man. Yeah,
it does help that you have people to sort of bounce off in chat as well. Again, if you, it's one thing just streaming to, it's probably actually more difficult streaming to nobody then because you haven't got anyone to bounce off.
Yeah, true. I know that quite a lot.
Yeah, but the thing that I first did, which I've subsequently told anybody who asks about it because I think it's a good idea, is just sort of just commentate on your own what you're doing. So again, that could work for coding. You can say, I'm not a coder, so I don't really know. But you could say specifically what you're doing at the moment and just sort of run people through it whilst you're doing it.
Yeah.
Basically speaking out loud what you're thinking. And that's how I first did it when I first started streaming, was that obviously you get maybe 1 viewer a stream if you're lucky. But if you're just saying, right, I'll jump here, I'll go up here to kill this guy, go down here, and I spin back here because this makes this guy come out quicker, it doesn't feel that awkward because you're not trying to have a conversation with nobody there, but you are also A, letting people know what's going on, B, making sure there's no dead air, and C, then I guess entertaining people as a result.
Can you just give us an idea of what dead air is?
So dead air, it's I think a term really they use in radio more than anything else. But it's basically silence on the radio. So I'm not necessarily sure it's as important for streaming, but definitely on radio, the number one crime is silence on the radio, because that's the whole point of a radio station, right? Is that you're listening to something, whether it's talking or music.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think dead air is basically silence, and specifically in a radio context, like if a song's finished and the DJ is like in the bathroom or something after the song's finished and there's just silence, that's dead air.
Yeah.
So that's like the number one crime, I think, in radio, and I guess TV as well.
It's impossible for us to have dead air in here, because even if we try it, I've got AI that runs through the video, and I mean, it's a paid service, but it looks for any dead air and then truncates it. So if there's dead air for 2 seconds, and then there's like another 10 seconds of dead air after it, it will flip back to it. So sometimes...
And that's done by AI?
Yeah, so sometimes
that's really interesting.
Sometimes it's not good, because like if somebody says something really profound or really heartbreaking, which is like, we should actually have a minute's worth of silence. So basically somebody will say something, and that was the end of him, and you basically see, okay. You know what I mean?
I didn't know that even existed as a tool. That's a really good idea. But yeah. I think it's maybe not as important on stream, because again, you're streaming for a long time, often, usually 3 or 4 hours, and it's just not possible to constantly talk. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you want to try and avoid silence where possible, and awkward silences as well. You just want to keep going.
Yeah,
and that's more entertaining.
I mean, I haven't researched this topic, speedrunning and AI. I've seen games like Dota where AI is beating the best gamers, and there's other games where AI has managed to defeat human performance. But I don't think AI right now would be good at speedrunning, because it's so optimized. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is AI that could play Streets of Rage 2 and beat the world record.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, actually, because we were literally talking about this 2 or 3 days ago on stream. So there isn't really like an AI speedrun bot, but one of my friends, G Saurus, who is quite involved in like the hacking and modding side of the game, and he's even created his own game recently called Streets of Rage 2 New Era, which I've been playing quite a lot. And it's sort of like a refresh of the game, and it's got rid of all the rubbish from the original stuff, like the glitches and stuff like that, and added stuff like multiplayer and online co-op and stuff like that. It's great. But yeah, he was talking to me saying that he's thought about setting up like almost like a machine learning bot. I think he's even got a YouTube video from quite a while ago now of what is effectively a machine trying to learn how to speedrun just by repeating. I forgot the phrase necessarily, but like a trial and error type thing. Mm-hmm. So like the bot will just constantly hold right, and then if it gets hit, it restarts again, then goes right, and then but at the end it goes up, because it got killed before by going right. And I think it completes... I can't remember if he told me he managed to get it to complete the game like that, or maybe just complete level 1. Either way, it was quite impressive what he managed to teach it to do. So whilst nothing exists like that at the moment, I don't think it'd be impossible, and I don't think it would be necessarily too far off either. But it might be something that's a bit more technical as opposed to something everybody could use.
Yeah. I wonder if like the fans of streamers are less popular with the streamers in real life versus like movie stars and their fans, because sometimes you read these stories about like just people that want to completely divorce, because like you never actually go into any events, you're meeting your fans as a streamer that often, unless you're like Dr. Disrespect. When you do meet fans, it's probably even stranger, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, things like this, like chats over the internet, it doesn't feel that different, because it's not really that different to just chatting to them on chat whilst I'm streaming as well. But there are a couple of guys from Twitch who I've met in real life who live nearby. But yeah, again, I don't really see it as like a fan-streamer relationship. They're just more like mates. Yeah. Really.
Because you have a small enough stream that it can be like that. But once you get to a higher point, it's completely different, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I imagine, if you're getting to the point where you're getting thousands of viewers a stream and you can't keep up with the people coming in stream, and you don't know anybody, you don't know any regulars because there's so many people. Yeah, I imagine then meeting somebody on the street would be a bit more of a different like connection, I guess.
Yeah.
Much more like something like a celebrity would have, like a proper movie celebrity or something.
I found like when in Discord servers, I've had a few Discord servers blow up to several thousand users, And at that point, it just becomes a lot more impersonal. You almost like preferred it when it was smaller because you could actually keep a tab on everything that was going on. But
Yeah.
It's when you have like hundreds of messages and everybody, it's a bit different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I think that's quite an important thing as well, particularly for a streamer who is growing, is that you've got to try and remember as much as you can about people. It's not easy because there's so many hundreds of people who visit over the course of a week.
Yeah,
you get people. I do it all the time. Is I get people muddled up. So the way Twitch has it working is that I can see somebody's username, and they have a color for their username, and that's the main way I associate it. Like, that's
I didn't know
Nico
that.
with his green username and stuff like that. So
okay.
I do that. So if someone changes the color of their username, it really throws me off. But I like if there's like 3 or 4 people always in my chat who have purple usernames.
Yeah,
I always get them muddled up because I just see purple. I'm like, that must have been the guy who was talking about his dog yesterday or whatever like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I think what I would do is that I would I suppose that you could get to, if there was higher levels of people, but if I would have like probably subscribers able to have like a voice chat in Twitch, you can turn it on or off, and that'd be quite interesting. I don't know why Twitch don't allow voice chat for your users. You have to go through Discord or something like that. I mean, they probably poached that idea now if they watch a stream. Thank you, Twitch.
Invoices in the post.
Would you like audio people to be able to talk to you when you're streaming?
Possibly. Maybe like the option if like because we have channel points in Twitch as well, which are built up from like the more you watch the stream and the more you follow streamers after the end of their stream to the next stream. Possibly as like a high level points redeem. The only problem is then if you just have it open to anybody, it would just be a mess really. Firstly, you'd have 70 odd people trying to do it all at once. And secondly, then you've got like trolls, the issue of trolls and stuff, and it's a lot more difficult to control. But yeah, I think if you have the option of like purchasing it, you're not actually paying anything, but imaginary channel points, I could see that being a good idea. But I guess it's sort of just the same as like doing a co-op game with somebody, really, or inviting people on to do co-op games. Is that you could just then connect with them on Discord, and it's sort of the same thing anyway. So. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but it's not anything I'm thinking of necessarily.
It was so funny that time that streaming. I went to. Hey Brad, thanks very much for your Ukraine support with this flag, and you're like, what flag? Where's this flag in my room?
Yeah, these headphones here that
intentional Ukraine flag.
Not even known that they were blue and yellow. But yeah, they may as well have been for all intents and purposes.
Cool, man. So what's the future look like for you, Ollie?
Well, I want to keep doing streaming for as long as possible. Really, I enjoy it so much, and the big thing is that it sort of stops me from getting bored. Really, because as I said, with my job and everything, I get quite a lot of time off, fortunately. And yeah, as a result, I wouldn't know what to do with my time then, because on my days off, this can take at least 4 hours of that. I'm sure I'll probably find something else to invest my time into, but I think this is a good thing. It's keeping me like chatting with people, keeping social, doing something I enjoy doing, and doing something that people enjoy watching as well. So definitely like to keep doing the stream and obviously build the channel. I mean, if we're talking like long-term goals, it'd be great if I could make this like a full-time thing, but I'm definitely under no illusions of how unlikely that is, just because it's to be able to get to the stage where you're making a full-time living off it, you've got to be getting thousands of people. And it's not feasible, really, especially with a retro game. Yeah. But as long as I'm enjoying it and as long as I'm able to do it, I'll keep doing it because I really do enjoy it.
How many hours do you think you sunk into Streets of Rage 2?
We actually worked this out not so long ago, and it'll be even higher than the number we worked out. So when I'm timing the games, the timing program I use called LiveSplit also stores the amount of total playtime you've played on the game. So, yeah, if you do like a half an hour run, that'll just add half an hour to your total playtime. So I added up all the difficulties that I'd played, all their total playtime. I can't remember what it came up with. It was something like 2 months worth of gaming. But the actual answer would be quite a bit higher than that for a number of different reasons. Firstly, there'll be times that I haven't actually done a timer or not saved the time and it's been overwritten the next time. And then also it's not even accounting for the rest of my life playing the game as well, of which I had 28 years worth of it as well. So a long time is the answer, but I couldn't give you a solid thing. About 2 months, I think.
Would it be? I mean, I heard that something. So some of the guys that said did it. Well, this Red Bull monster's starting to go to my head now. Some people have put like 10,000 hours into one game, like Super Metroid, to get even close to becoming in like the top 20 or 30 or 40 or 50.
Yeah.
We're talking about 10,000 hours in a retro game that was made 25 years ago.
Yeah, and even more than that as well. It's not even like it is something like Call of Duty where every game is different and you're competing against new people every time. This is just playing the same old game with yourself. Just over and over and repeating it. So I think it also sort of takes a specific kind of person who's willing to do that.
Yeah,
I can completely see why it wouldn't be for everybody, because I can imagine people quite easily getting bored with it if they're not seeing any improvements. But yeah, I enjoy it, so I'll keep doing it.
Cool. Well, mate, anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot here. I've enjoyed it.
We've given on the hour here, giving people a good intro into this what seems to be an ever-growing pastime as people become more sedentary and growing up with these computers and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I mean, I just use it as a little bit of I'm on the road quite a lot, and I just put when I'm working and I don't want to concentrate, I'll just put like picture in picture, have you shouting at Donovan and stuff like that, So.
Yeah, I think it's great just for people to watch passively. I think that's one of the big things as well, and it's not like it needs, on the viewer's part, it's not like it needs a big commitment from them. It's just, and it's not just my stream. I think streaming generally, specifically for video games, you don't need to be 100% hyper focused on it like TV shows. Sometimes you can just have it on in the background whilst you're doing other stuff, and I think it's really good for that type of thing. Yeah.
Okay, Ollie, that was a lot of fun, and hopefully one day we'll meet in person even. So
yeah, definitely.
Have a good evening and have a good stream the next time we're up, and good luck in that oil and gas industry you're in as well.
Nice one. Cheers. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
God bless.